So I have a feeling this is going to be a rant. It's going to be one of those weekly videos that you go, Ed, come on, land the plane, dude. That's one of these this week. What am I going to talk about this week is disclosure. It's not a popular conversation. It's not a popular topic because disclosure, when it comes to like the seller property disclosure statement, the SPDS, I argue that it's like the biggest way that a seller can get into trouble is not disclosing something. So it's like disclosure is such a big deal. I'm going to give you my opinions on it. I'm also going to give you a couple of examples of how that showed up this week and what that looks like. And this isn't a, disclosure you're a bad person, or this isn't one of those conversations where I'm trying to give pass any judgment on anybody. My position is once you disclose something, once somebody knows something, it is now material and you got to disclose it, right? You need to know it. Therefore, let me take you through these two situations and scenarios, and you'll see what I mean as to how this can show up or either help or hurt in different scenarios for either a buyer or a seller. Being in the industry a while, you tend to know where you can push and where you shouldn't. And one of the things that we do in real estate is you know how to navigate the real estate transactions from a standpoint of who needs to get what, right? Who needs to be the responsible party for each item and document that comes in. Hey, back in the day, I remember I would send all kinds of documents to the wrong people, and that wasn't a good thing. Wrong people meaning I made the mistake one time of sending an inspection to the lender on the buy side. I thought that was what was needed, right? And the lender ended up being a good friend of mine, and you'll see why. Hit me up and he's like, Ed, I don't want the inspection. Do not ever send me the inspection. I said, well, why? Well, the reason for it is because once that lender sees what's in that inspection, which they don't want to see, now they have to potentially do something about it. The underwriters may have to do something about it, right? So where they get their information on condition is from the appraisal. The appraisal, they're going to see the whole appraisal. That's for the lender. And that's where the appraiser will go through the property and call things out that don't necessarily qualify to the standard of what the bank is planning to lend. Let's say it's FHA. If there are no floors in there that are livable, then ultimately that will come up on the appraisal, and there will be conditions on the appraisal so that the buyer let's say the buyer's lender won't finance the deal until those conditions are met, right? Sometimes they're what's called funding conditions. That's one of those. You can't fund the loan until you get this thing done. So that's that example, right? So now as a buyer, you don't want your lender to have your inspection report. Of course, they need to get the appraisal, but the inspection report is for you. It's for you to negotiate. It's for you to figure out what those terms are. Because at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that information that you're providing, if you were to provide that to your lender, can come back and absolutely bite you. Because if you've already negotiated your inspections and the buyer inspection and the seller's response, now the seller is going to ask for, your buyer's lender is going to potentially ask for things that were not included in that negotiation, and now adds after the fact something that needs to be done. Well, that's a buyer issue. That's not a seller issue. That's a funding issue. That's your buyer lender is the one that is having the problem. So how does that have anything to do with the seller other than the fact that it won't be able to close, right? So again, once in disclosure, once somebody sees something, once they know about it, they can't unsee it. And that's what happens with inspection reports. You send that inspection report to a lender, the lender sees it, and of course they're going to call everything out, even the things that you would not expect. They just expect that all of these things now are going to be corrected. That's about as painful as it can get when it comes to working on a buyer situation that has put themselves into that spot. That's a very, very, very tough one. Secondarily, let's say it's on the seller side. Seller doesn't know anything about the house they're living in, or no, not living in. They inherited. Let's change the narrative for a second. Now they just inherited this house and they're like, what issues are going to come up with this property? Maybe we should do an inspection. Well, once you do the inspection, now you know all the things you need to disclose as soon as somebody comes to the table. Not to say that you weren't going to disclose it in the first place. It's just, if you don't know, you don't know, right? And that can sometimes help a situation. When you're putting a house on the market for the first time, if you're going at it and you're like, oh, by the way, the roof needs a full replacement, right? It's like, how is that helping you in negotiations? Now, if that comes up, which it will during the inspection period, you may end up finding a buyer that doesn't really care so much about that, or they're planning on doing that anyway, right? So it's like things tend to work out when you know what you know. And if you know too much, sometimes it's not the best. If you know too little, it also isn't so good. But again, once you do know, you have to disclose. So again, that's why sometimes for us, if somebody is bringing a new property to the table, I don't want to know the condition until after the first buyer puts in their request. Or we'll walk it with one of our guys who is a technician that is looking at all the pieces of how to make this property a particular way, right? Lipstick, how to clean it up, right? But again, we don't know all the nuance, the details of this property because we're not digging in that far. That's not what we do when it comes to cleaning up these properties. It's just lipstick. It's not doing a full inspection to see, hey, what's the age of the electrical panel and all of these things. It's not a concern on certain properties. Cool. I hope this helps. Again, once we see it, you can't unsee it. This is a big deal in real estate. And I hope this information helps you in some way, because again, this week, these manifest themselves in different ways. And it's interesting because when trust is involved in these types of situations, it's so important to really be as transparent as humanly possible. Sometimes the truth is not pretty. Thanks.